Welcome to Seeing with Your Soul, the podcast aimed to inspire you to find your voice and become the best, truest, and most authentic version of yourself. Spiritually intimate, soul-to-soul conversations, life-changing insights, and spiritual teaching and healing. Real, raw, unfiltered. Join your host, Tisha Michelle.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Seeing with Your Soul with me, Tisha Michelle, your host. What's up? What's up? What's up? How y'all feeling out there? Want you to just take a couple of nice, deep, intentional breaths and just ground yourself and really check in. And I want you to ask yourself, in this present moment, how am I feeling? And just really just acknowledge how it is that you're feeling. What is the feeling that's going through your body, your mind, your thoughts? You feeling good? You feeling great? You feeling dope? You feeling like shit? You're feeling confused? What is it? And the reason being is we want to get very, very comfortable with checking in on our own self, right? It's great we have people around you that check on you. That's dope. It's a bonus. But checking in with yourself and seeing how it is that you feel. And it's really about just allowing yourself to become really, really aware of yourself. Because when you're aware of how you're feeling, you can change things. So if you've been listening to me for a while, you've heard me say it on numerous occasions. With awareness comes change. With change comes growth. So checking in with yourself and saying, in this present moment, I feel ... and being okay with it. And when I say being okay with it, meaning like not giving yourself so much of a hard time because you're not feeling great, where people are around you are like, you should be feeling great, or I feel good, I feel this. Like, no, you feel how you feel. I feel how I feel. And everybody feels how they feel because they're the ones that's going through certain things, right? So take a couple of deep intentional breaths, and you're just going to be breathing in through your nose, and then you're just going to be exhaling on out through your mouth, and just check in and say, in this present moment, how do I feel? And if you want to go to what we're used to doing, if you're an OG and you've been listening, then you can go a little bit further and then say, in this present moment, what am I grateful for? Maybe you're grateful for the feeling that you're having because now it's brought you some awareness to whatever that may be. You know? But just what's up, guys? How y'all feeling? What you grateful for? What's going on over there? Me, I'll share with you, in this present moment, I am just grateful for life, man. And I'm saying that I'm grateful for life for so many reasons, but I would probably say the main one is I'm learning so much, y'all. I'm learning so much about life. I'm learning so much about myself. I'm learning so much about you guys. Like when we like connect, whether you come to a retreat or you send me a message or we work one-on-one, or just then, I'm learning just about people in general. I'm learning how I the role that I play in this thing called like life. Like, I'm just grateful for it. I'm when I say that I'm learning things about myself, I get to see how resilient I am, how creative I am, how fucking dope I am, how I can, help other people, how I can help myself now, how I can separate from removing my ego at times and checking my own self. I'm just like, yo, life is great, man. Life is just great. And how I'm feeling in the present moment. In the present moment, I'm feeling like everything is just going to be okay. Got a couple of different things that's going on in my life that's, some more than others is weighing pretty heavy. I have some decisions I need to make. I need to get out of my own way. But the way that I'm feeling right now is like everything's going to be okay. So I'll take that because the way I felt 3 days ago wasn't that. So I'll take it. All right, y'all. So this episode today was recorded it was recorded back in April. So honestly, I don't even remember everything that I've said, or if what I've talked about that might not that's already passed. So I know this is season 2, so don't get confused if you're like, what? Wait, you're where now? Yeah, that was in April. All right, so I've probably talked before on a podcast where I talk about who I go to when I need some guidance, or I need a reading, or I need to make some sense and I'm in my way. It's not too many people that I talk to, but this person, Jamie Dawn, is someone that I met a couple of years ago that was doing readings. I mean, she still does, but it was pretty cool because when I met her, I wanted to get a reading and I called and they said that they wasn't doing any in person. They was only doing it over the phone. And I didn't want to do it over the phone because I thought doing it over the phone wasn't going to work. But something said, no, just book it. So I said, okay, I booked it and I pulled over in a parking lot and I sat there and I waited for her to call and the rest is history. She's been my person. So the person that can help me make sense of things when I'm in my own way, the person that I go to get a reading, or the person I go to understand some stuff with astrology, that's who I go to. So Jamie is super dope, in so many different ways. Like one, like her ability, like her psychic abilities when she's doing like readings and to connect is super, super, super dope. She be so on point, especially with dates. Like she'd be like, yeah, I'm seeing this around this time, and like boom, that's what it is. And it's so wild. But she also has that part where she can, especially if you like astrology and like full moons and new moons and the different planets and stuff, like where she can make that make sense that it's not, because it can be a very complex thing. But the way that she breaks it down with like, your sun and your moon and your rising, it's just like, oh wow, I can digest this, right? She's also a like a certified life coach, and she did business teaching. So it's like you get this whole full package with everything. So especially if what I'm needing some guidance on is around like business and all, she can bring that spiritual and that practical part too. So it's super dope. And it's honestly, it's long overdue for her to be on Seeing with Your Soul. But I was like, you know what, let's just level up on some of these conversations and that I want to be bringing to you guys. So I reached out to her. She's like, what's up? Let's do it. So we talk about, astrology. We talk about like intuition. And it's just a dope conversation because she's a dope individual. So yeah. All right. So I hope you guys enjoy the conversation that I had with Jamie Dawn of jamiedawn.com. Well, welcome. I'm
Thank
super
you.
excited to like the whole time I was like, oh my gosh, I get to talk to my girl Jamie. Like, I'm so excited about this.
I think I might be more excited, but go ahead.
Okay, what before we dive in, the question that I ask everybody that comes on Seeing with Your Soul is, in this present moment, what would you say that you're grateful for?
Everything. And that's not specific, I know, but Meister Eckhart said if the only prayer we ever said was thank you, that would be enough. And
Mm,
so, I've been on a mission for the last several months, really actually now a couple of years, about integrating everything, and in the true spirit of community, everything is welcome, even the negative. And so, because the negative can be our teacher and the positive can be our fine friend. So, and as human beings, we're here to integrate and not dismiss the shadow, but to work with it because it serves us.
no, I love that. And it's interesting that you said that because at the time of us recording right now, we have the eclipse, coming up. And I've had so many people, and including myself too, it's just kind of like that energy is just like, it's
Mm.
a lot of the shadow stuff. And, the more you run from it, the more it's like, catching up to you and kind of jumping in front. And it's just like, I probably should deal with this stuff.
That's right. It's not going to
So
go away. So,
yeah, so just interesting, that you say that far as about the negative, because it's a lot of that stuff, and it's pretty heavy. So it makes sense that we're actually recording this episode around this time, because that's what I want to talk about is astrology, because a lot of people, when they think of astrology, they just think of your horoscope, right?
right,
And that's
right.
the anything that they think, and then a lot of times they just really dismiss that or only stick with that. But there's so much more, to astrology, and I personally didn't know a lot of this until like we really started like connecting, and I'm like, well, dang, that's kind of like a little blueprint that we can go off of and stuff. So if you don't mind, if we can kind of start with just from your point of view and perspective, like what is astrology?
Sure. So first of all, it is like another language. And if you're not an astrologer or astute to even studying astrology, talking about planets and signs and houses and aspects and all that won't make a lot of sense. So that's why it's important to have somebody who is versed in the language that can also translate it into layman's terms. And as I like to say, the planets don't make us do anything, but we are made of earth and stars. And so we can feel effects of planetary movements, of its energy, let's put it that way. And so what I'm doing with astrology is I'm saying this energy that we may be feeling, you think about the moon and all the phases of the moon and how it affects the tides. And as women, it affects our cycles. And, even men can experience it through the water in their body, because we're made of 70% water, right? And so the moon, when it's moving through its different phases, we could probably feel the effects of it. And so when all the other planets are also making different movements, like the sun moving from Aries into Taurus right now, we might have felt when the sun was in Aries, we might have felt a little bit more energized and independent. It introduces spring. We feel fresh and new and inspired and ready to take some risk. And now that it's in Taurus, we may be feeling more like, okay, I've taken a few risks, I've expressed myself in my own way, and now I need to put some real steps in place, and I need to be able to nurture the things that I've already started, and I'm ready to build it. Taurus is a master builder, and it wants to put something tangible and practical into form. So these are the ways in which we can utilize astrology when there's different cycles and patterns that arise. And you mentioned the blueprint, because as an astrologer, I look at a birth chart, which is a snapshot, and it's not an exact thing, because who decides when you're born? The doctor, right? And way back when, birth certificates didn't even have birth times. So that some people may not even know what their birth time is. But as an astrologer, I need the date of birth, the time, and the place, because it sets it up with longitude, latitude. It sets it up with where the planets were at the exact moment that you took your first breath or was declared alive. And it's unique. Even if you were a twin, it's still unique to you, because if you think about it, one twin is born before the other, right? So even if it's just a minute, there's different effects of it. So I look at this birth chart and I'm able to see how the planets interact with each other. So the planet is the what. What is it that's happening for me right now? And then the sign is how. So you think of it like acting. The planet's the actor, the how, the sign is the clothing in which the actor expresses itself. So it's how does this planet behave based on it being in the sign of, say, Taurus. And so, like I described about the sun in Taurus, it wants to build things. It's very friendly. It loves relationships and that sort of thing. And then the house so it's divided into 12 houses on your birth chart. The house tells me where the actors are displaying and expressing themselves, what areas of your life may be affected more than others when the planets are playing in these particular houses. And it's like a life cycle. You start with the house 1, which is like birth, and you finish with house 12, which is like moving into unity consciousness or death. And then you're reborn again. And so then you have the aspects, which are all the lines that connect the planets. And that tells you how these actors interact with each other. And so it gives a nice big overall picture as to what may have been happening in your life. So a lot of astrologers, we look at it from past patterns, and then we're able to say, hey, noticing these patterns and the way in which you may have been affected by life and some of the choices that you made, here's a way now that you can become more self-aware and make different choices for the evolution of your soul, the evolution of your personality. So that's the basic when it comes to astrology and what it is. It's not a science, but it is based, I mean, there's astronomy involved. It's not really, you can do some predictive qualities to it. It definitely has an intuitive piece to it. That's the individual astrologer offering the intuitive. But I use it as a tool for self-awareness, and I start with the personality and then move into the soul.
Okay. So you keep saying like with it being in Taurus, so I'm a Taurus, birthday getting ready to come up. So well, actually, I want to go back to something else real quick.
Sure.
When you talked about like with women using it for like their cycles, like what about people who don't have their cycle, like such as myself, like I don't have a cycle due to the hysterectomy, but there's times where I feel like I'm on my cycle, but I'm not actually on my cycle.
Mm-hmm.
What do you know like about that in a sense? Like, because this is actually like a personal question for me, which I know there's going to be other people listening as well too, where I want to kind of use the different moon and the different phases and to work in that sense, but I don't actually have a cycle. So what's like another way to really connect?
Yeah. So remember, everything's energy, right? And even if you're not actually having a physical cycle, your body is still responding. Because remember, intuition lies in the body, and the body doesn't lie. The polygraph was invented because lies cannot come into the body. So the more in tune we are with our bodies, the more we'll feel the effects of shifting energy. You know this. You walk into a room and you scope it out and you go, oh, I like that energy. I don't know about that person. And the body's constantly talking, maybe you get an upset stomach, maybe you get a headache, or maybe you get excited and you get those chills, the goosebumps, the God bumps, as some people call them, that sort of thing. So the body's always talking to you. So for someone who doesn't have a moon cycle, doesn't mean that you won't still feel it. So you start paying attention to, what am I feeling? What am I noticing? At, say, the new moon, we tend to pull in and get introspective. We tend to be, it's called a dark moon because the moon is not reflecting the sun anymore. They're next to each other. And so it's almost as if the sun has absorbed the moon. And this new moon in Taurus on Saturday happens to be an eclipse, because the nodes of the moon, which are, I won't go into all those details, but it's on the ecliptic of the moon's orbit. But the nodes of the moon are in Taurus and Scorpio. And so when you have the nodes of the moon next to a new moon or a full moon, it's an eclipse. And so what eclipses back in ancient days, astrologers would go, oh no, death of the king. Oh no, something terrible is going to happen. Modern astrology doesn't do the doom and gloom stuff. I'm not a doom and gloom person. Bad things happen all the time. Good things happen all the time. So but the thing with the rule, if you will, with an eclipse, it's usually final. There's no going back. And it's not to say we don't have choices, but normally it's a pretty final decision or marking point that happens. And on a new moon, very typically, it's a new beginning. And on a full moon, it's an ending of some sort, or something comes to light that ends a cycle and starts a new one. And with an eclipse, it's so powerful that we can feel the effects of it, or see some sort of experience, have an experience a month before or a month after. So even if it doesn't happen right on Saturday, let's say, it doesn't mean it won't happen down the road. So for perfect example, my son received news that his team may have gotten disbanded 2 days ago, and then this morning it was decided, nope, we're not going to do that. We want something innovative. We want something different. The old ways of doing things are not working. And the interesting thing is, my son's an Aquarius, who is an Aquarian, who's ruled by Uranus. Uranus is the planet of sudden change, innovation, independence, rebellion, and Uranus happens to be in Taurus near this new moon, and it's an eclipse. So he's already getting some talks of something shifting, but not quite sure what that is and what that means, right? And he may not get the end result till June. You just don't know. So for you, Tisha, if you're looking at it from the cycle standpoint, not just the physical cycle, but just patterns in your life, whatever you're initiating right now, may take time to build over time for you to see those results, but these new seeds, if you will, are being planted. And most new moons, like I say, you pull in, you get introspective, you set intentions. I use the elements. This is an earth new moon, so I would literally take seeds and maybe whisper or write or say my wish or intention into the seed and plant it in some soil, right? Or write it on a piece of paper and bury it. Anything
Mm.
physical, earthy, that sort of thing. Fire, I would do a fire ceremony. Water, I would do a water ceremony, shower, whatever, something with water. And then in the air signs, it would be writing, speaking, talking about what my intentions are. And so when I work with a new moon and intentions, that's what I would do. And when I'm working with a full moon, it's about releasing it. And so very often full moons are usually, regardless of the element, I tend to do some sort of fire ceremony with it to release it, but you can do it with water and earth and air as well. So
Okay.
does that
So,
answer your question?
oh yeah, absolutely. So the full moon is more for releasing, and then the new moon is more for setting like the intentions. And this one that
Mm-hmm.
we have coming up for April 30th is just happens to be a new moon, but
And it's an eclipse.
it's
Mm-hmm.
an eclipse. And yeah, so for me personally, which I think is really good, like you're saying, like kind of paying attention to like the patterns and like how you're feeling around certain times, so you can really like start to see. So personally for me right now, how I've been feeling is I've been kind of feeling like I'm underwater, as well as wanting to just like cry, like feeling like I'm ready to just scrap everything and start all over. So the part where I get confused with that feeling, I'm like, is this because of the energies and everything? There's a shift that's coming, which I've been feeling for a while. There's a shift, but I don't know what. Or is this just me just wanting to be done with this world, done with Earth?
Yes,
Before
yes, and yes. Yes,
so
all the above.
yeah, so that's like how I've been feeling. And I know that, because I do know that with the new moons and the full moons, like I do feel it when we're coming like close to it. So it's definitely in my head. And I'm like, or even with like retrograde, anything of that sort, like I do feel it. And then I'm like, man, this is even in Taurus. I'm a Taurus. I was like, what the heck, is going on. And I just think that it's, important for people, and especially my listeners, because if they're listening to this podcast, and if you're listening to this podcast, you're open to astrology and really kind of looking for other clues and stuff where it's really like tuning in with yourself. So I think that's like really, important, like you said, to pay attention to those patterns and be able to see, like, it's not necessarily like predictive in a sense, but you can kind of see like, oh, this is why I'm feeling like this, so now let me just go in a little bit more and kind of sit with this. So like for me personally, like, okay, when you say the way I'm feeling, like scrapping everything, what does that truly mean to me? Instead of just ignoring it and be like, no, 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 I can't do any of this. I really kind of take time to like step back and really just pay attention, like why you're feeling the way that you're feeling. And like you said, our body doesn't lie. It'll give us some
Mhm.
messages, stuff to use.
Well, I've known you long enough that I can say this, but you have these marked points in your life where you get restless and where you feel like it's not moving fast enough or you're not invested in something, that something has to change.
Yeah.
And and that's a small pattern to pay attention to. When does this occur? How often?
Mm,
And then you can apply it with the astrology piece where it's like, okay, is the moon in a particular sign? Like you have an Aries moon and the moon is right now in Aries. So is that affecting your mood? Because the moon has all those phases just like the moods do.
mm,
And for those who are familiar with the signs and zodiac, Cancer is ruled by the moon. Every sign has a ruler, right? And so if you are, that's why they say cancers can be moody, which
yeah.
I guess could be true, but that's a generalized statement. I think that we all can be because we can
Yeah.
be affected by it. But something else you said that I think is a really good point too is that those of us who are highly sensitive, we are tapping into not only what's happening for us, but what's happening in the collective. And
Mm,
so, and think about this, you could be in a perfectly good mood. And this is the empathic piece, perfectly fine mood, everything's stable. You walk into a crowd and suddenly you're destabilized, you're in a terrible mood, whatever. You most likely are picking up on other people's stuff. And so that's where it's important to know, where do you start? Where do you end? Is this mine? Is this somebody else's? And so, for instance, to point out the whole mood thing, that is a good indicator for women when they're on their moon cycle. If you notice, even if you're not physically having it, you're still feeling the moods of it. I can tell you, the day before my moon cycle starts, I want to kill everybody. I am a nasty person. And it's all internal. But see, the
Mhm.
gift is that I recognize it in myself, and I can make a different choice, because my philosophy is to leave a person or place better than I found it. So if my action or my words are going to harm, then I need to pull back, right? And so I always know that that day before, where I either get highly anxious or highly angry, I need to do self care. I need to go exercise. I need to move that energy in some way that is of a healthy outlet. That's where studying patterns and cycles come in, where it's like, oh, I recognize what's about to happen. And here's the gift: freedom is about choice. People talk about freedom all the time, but they don't consciously make choices. And that's what any tool can offer us. The more self aware we are, the more freedom we have, because we can make a choice.
No, I love that. I'm glad that you brought up the whole choice thing, because I know that, a lot of the listeners, because I get a lot of, feedback, and I work with them as clients or just, friends and stuff, that's the big thing. As much as we want freedom and choice and we have it, there's still the part that feels like we don't, but we really do. So then we cause a lot of the suffering and stuff. And I know that I do 100%. You know that as long as you know me, I'll be creating my own nonsense. I'll be
We
creating my
create our Hey, we're the center of our own universes, so we create our own nonsense. I mean, hell, we can look around at the world and go, it's all going to hell in a handbasket. What's happening inside of me?
yeah.
What's my perspective? What's my view? And what chaos may be happening inside of me as well?
Oh, no, absolutely. And another big thing that I get from a lot of people, and I can very much relate, is feeling like what you should do, which is just a belief, right? It's like, well, I should be doing this, but then your body and everything in you says one other thing, but then it's that mind. And this is why I think I like astrology. When you kind of get, I'm not even necessarily really really deep, because I don't really go too deep with astrology. I just go for the basic of what I can, and then I got to call you okay, so they said this is in this sign, what that mean for me? I ain't even worried about nobody else. What do it mean for me? But being able to look at the moon and say, okay, I'm feeling like this makes all the sense in the world, because we're on a full moon, which is around releasing, and I know I need to let this go, but I'm just struggling to let this go. But then you can kind of see, and sometimes for me, I look at it, I be like, screw it. It's the full moon, so universe about to probably force me anyway, so I might as well just go ahead and do it in a sense. But it's it gets back to that part of choice, where sometimes you feel like you don't have a choice. And I know there's a lot of people that's going to be listening now and can relate to where they feel like they don't have a choice. But I love how you said we do have a choice.
Yeah.
We
And
do.
when we're making decisions and choices, one of the best ways of doing that is coming back to what do you value? What are your values? And if you're in alignment with your values, then you'll have peace. Even if you decide, let's say you're stuck in I know a lot of women who are caregivers, whether it's children or elderly parents or siblings or whatever, and they feel responsible. They can't go out and do what they want to do because they're caregiving, and it does feel like a sort of stuck situation. But here's the thing: they do have a choice. They could
Mm-hmm.
leave. They can give up the caregiving. They could send the children somewhere else, whatever it might be. But would they have peace with themselves if they did that? And probably not, right? And so that's, if their value is being a mother or being the caregiver, and that's higher than having the freedom to go travel and do their own thing and have love affairs, right?
Yeah.
Then you make a choice based on your highest value system, and you'll stay in alignment with yourself. So I want to encourage the listeners that if you feel like you're stuck, remind yourself first you have a choice, then come back to your values and really look at, okay, I'm making this choice that's in alignment here, and I'm doing it consciously, because if we can do it consciously, we won't have regret. Regret is the one thing we can never undo.
Mm. Ooh, yeah, that resonates so well, with me. So I know it's going to resonate with a lot of people, and that is because I remember for many, many, many years of my life, I'm like, I never lived with regrets. It doesn't matter what happened, and I used to always consciously say it. I'd be like, yeah, I don't ever have like regrets on anything because I know that I can't change anything. So it was just like, there's no purpose of that. There's no point for me to do that. But it was really more so like probably the past. I think my spiritual awakening started after, Gloria passed, which was the end of 2017. So really 2018, but then I found myself sometimes dipping back into that to be like, God, I regret that. Gosh, I wish. And I'm like, why would I start regretting things now? That I'm so much more in tune with myself. I was like, this is really like weird, but it goes back to that V word that you just said, values. And we've done an exercise on that before, and I'm pretty sure I said I don't know what my values are, and you had to like literally pull it out of me. And I've heard a couple of clients also, say they're like, I'm not really sure. Like, why do you think that is, that we, like, people struggle with knowing what their values are, or even sticking with
I
that?
think, well, I think it's more taking the time out to make that list or evaluate it. Here's the simplest way to find out what you value. Where do you spend the most time, energy, and resources on? What do you spend your money on? What do you spend your time with? Who do you spend your time with? Right? I mean, those are the kinds of things that I value. In the past, I really valued travel. So I had a air miles card, right? And so it was like, okay, if I'm going to spend money, I'm going to get air miles while I'm spending this money, right? Because I want to travel. Well, and now that I've moved to Reno, which to me is home. I'm so in love with this place. I don't ever want to leave, if you will. That I don't travel now has shifted. I only travel now if I have to see my kids or for Nine Gates Mystery School. But other than that, I'm here. But now my value is relationship because I'm really focused on that now, and I'm very focused on my business. And so where do you spend your time and energy? That's what can help you with your value system.
Mine is food.
Hey, yes, very Taurus of you.
It's
I'm
so
telling you
weird.
right now, you want a good meal, find a Taurus.
Oh my gosh. And I'm seeing that it's so heavy when I be scared to look at, my bank account is like Uber Eats, Uber Eats, Uber Eats. But I know what it really is. It's not even necessarily like the food, like definitely the emotional part in that aspect too. Because if I'm going through something, I'll instantly think in my head, I'm like, okay, I can't wait to get home. I know what I'm already going to order to eat, and I'm just going to watch this TV and just check out of this goddamn world. And I'm catching myself now because I'm wasting a lot of money because I don't even finish eating it. I don't
Right.
even finish eating like the food. I'm like, I'm full like very quickly. So I'm like, I don't even want this. It's just replacing it in that sense. But so when you say that, where my money, I'm looking at I'm like, it's food. This is
Yeah.
crazy.
So you value that. And not I'm going to offer it this way, using you as an example, but not saying this is you,
Yeah.
but you're somewhat eating your feelings. But also, if you think about it, food is something that is a necessity. It's a survival thing.
Mm.
And so when our energy is triggered with our emotions, we know energy or emotions is energy in motion, E hyphen motion,
Mm-hmm.
that we need an outlet for them. And so food is one of those basics. Very often, if somebody says food is my trigger, I'm eating my feelings, you're feeling like you're in survival mode. And so that activates that fight, flight, or freeze mode, right? The hippocampus that we're working, the reptilian brain that we're working on reprogramming, but finding a different outlet for that. Not saying that we need to eat. That's not what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying. But if that is something that people are wanting to shift, then noticing, okay, not only am I eating my feelings, I'm in survival mode. What do I need to do to take care of myself and then move out of surviving back into thriving?
Oh my gosh, you just hit it. That's it. I cannot wait to share this with Wendy because we are like the same with the whole food thing, but I never made that connection. First of all, I 100% know about the survival mode. Like I talk about that all the time with me. It's like I'm so used to, being in survival mode that I put myself, or maybe the illusion is I'm in survival mode, but I'm not, but I'm so used to it that the
Mm-hmm.
calmness, the ease is just like, that's weird. What's that about? Like why did that happen so easily? Because I'm so used to being in surviving, but I never made that connection with food being a necessity to like survive. And then that's it's my go-to. It's
Mm-hmm.
my go-to. Oh my,
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
oh.
When I get stressed, my go-to is the gym. And there is a negative side to over exercising. You tear down your body, you get injuries. It's not healthy, to overdo it. So I had to recognize that I wouldn't eat the right foods. I wouldn't eat at all. I was starving myself at one point. So I
Mm,
did the opposite, right? And it wasn't a body shame thing. It was I'm not, I don't want to eat. It was like punishing myself. If I was hungry, it was like, good, you should be because you overindulged for too many years. I mean,
mm,
there's that sort of thing that kicked in. So, paying attention to that. Now, here's the astrological pieces. So we'll use the planet Jupiter because it's in Pisces right now and it's going to ingress into Aries on May 10th, right when Mercury goes retrograde in Gemini. And so this next month, May, has some pretty big movements planetary wise. Well, with Jupiter moving into Aries, your moon is in Aries. Jupiter is the planet of expansion, optimism, good luck, fortune, but also overindulgence. So that's the light. Every planet has a light and shadow quality to it. And so, with it applying to your moon, you may feel the effects of Jupiter where you could get over optimistic or you could get overly passionate because your moon is in Aries about something. Now, that can work for you if you channel it into something that works for you, something that you consider to be healthy for you. At the same time, it can also create, because the moon is our moods, right? It's how we mother ourselves, it's how we nurture ourselves and others. It's also the moon is our subconscious patterns, the things if we feel threatened that we automatically do. So if you feel threatened, you're going to speak truth. You're going to be like, all right, enough. Let's take action. Let's get this done. You need to sit down and shut the fuck up is pretty much what it's going to be, right? And with Jupiter applying, it could expand that. So you could find that you're very passionate about stuff, which inspires other people, and you can get a lot of good opportunities because Jupiter brings opportunities, but it also could cause you to feel overly emotional,
mm.
overly passionate. So what are you going to do with that? Are you going to order more Uber Eats or are you going to find another outlet? Right?
Need to find another outlet because I'm picking up a lot of extra weight and I'm like I need to release it, and I know that that's just me putting on like a protection, which goes back to like you said the survival mode where it's not necessarily about quote unquote losing weight. I always say releasing because I don't want to get it back. Releasing the weight. It's about releasing the things that I'm still holding on to that I don't need to, but there's still that part that connects with the whole survival. So it always goes back to that S word, survival. Man.
Absolutely. And again, this isn't about negation. My world exists with integration. We need the survival pieces. That's just the basic needs, right? So establishing that baseline or that basic plan in your life is important. Now, the next stage of evolution, this is watching those cycles and patterns, is to say, okay, and personally, I went through that cycle when I lived in Virginia. I was I was depressed. I went through a couple of years of, I mean, it wasn't clinically diagnosed, but I knew what it was because I was eating my feelings and I was drinking my feelings, and I mean, I put on the weight and all that, and so instead of beating myself up, going, "How did you do that?" I was like, "No, I gave myself permission to be fully human." And
Mm,
but I overindulged. And then now that I'm in my happy place,
mm,
I was able to discipline using some discipline. And here's the astrological piece. I have a Capricorn rising, which is Capricorn is ruled by Saturn. Saturn is a planet of discipline, structure. It's the taskmaster. It's Lord Karma, if you will. And Saturn was applying to my ascendant, my rising sign, disciplining me. And Mars was in Aries at the time. This was 2.5 years ago, that I committed myself to an exercise and diet plan. And I went back to my bodybuilding diet and back to my exercising. I don't miss a day. It's one of those things. And so while now my body has readjusted where I'm at a really gentle place. I'm not as fit as I could be, but I'm definitely better than I was. Now I'm content. And so, being able to stay that course is important as well. So all of that to say, being able to look at where the planets are. So another thing for all the listeners, if you have Capricorn somewhere in your chart, well, we all have it in our chart, but if it's a dominant like mine with the rising sign, if you have a sun, moon, or rising sign in Capricorn, Pluto has been moving through the sign of Capricorn. Pluto is not graceful. Pluto is the planet of force, of hidden shit that bubbles to the surface. I call it like the rotor-rooter. It also can be one that mines for treasures, and a lot of treasures come up. But basically, the theme of Pluto is transform or die. And it forces you to transform. So it brings in people and situations that are out of our control that say, what are you going to do with this? You have to surrender to this, and you have to allow yourself to not fight it and just go with it. And Pluto will move out of Capricorn in 2026 and into Aquarius. So wherever Aquarius is in your chart, for instance, it's in my second house. So it's going to be rotor-rootering and innovating and forcing me to look at what I value, finances, personal possessions, physical body, things like that. So we'll see where it goes with that. So just putting some pins on the map for the listeners if you want to look at your chart, if anybody's familiar with it.
Yeah. So real quick, because you talk about the sun, moon, and rising, can, for the listeners that aren't really aware, because most people just think of just the sun, they just think of, oh, I'm a Taurus, I'm an Aries, I'm a this, and they're not really familiar with that there's more to it than that, which is like mind-blowing itself. If you can just kind of touch on like what is like the sun, moon, and like rising.
Sure. So the sun is our identity, it's our ego, it's what gives us life force, the vitality, it's masculine. It's also the father archetype, the authority figure. We are sovereign in ourselves. So the sun, consider the sun the center of ourselves, the heart. And then the moon is the mother. It is, as I mentioned before, it's what we do when we feel threatened. Subconsciously, we react that way. I have a Libra moon, so I have a tendency to get very logical, factual. I want peace. I'm the peacemaker if something goes chaotic, that sort of thing. And then the moon is how we nurture ourselves. And I did say, yeah, the mother archetype. So you have the father and the mother, right? The sun and the moon. And then your rising sign is your mask. You'll hear it called the ascendant as well. It's where it's the eastern horizon where the sun was coming up the day you were born. And the descendant is where the sun was going down the day you were born. So I was born at night. So my sun is on the western side. But when you're looking at it from the chart view, the eastern side, that's your rising sign. And so the ascendant is the mask that we either want to wear, we want to show others, or that we, by default, because we're not paying attention to being self-aware, we just automatically create or show people these things. It's how we approach life, how we approach new things, how we approach situations. For instance, you have a Leo rising, and so you are very gregarious. You don't mind being in the spotlight. You're very social. You're very extroverted. But and with that Aries moon, it's a wonderful compliment because it just gives you all that fiery energy. But that Taurus sun sometimes needs to retreat. Sometimes needs to be quiet, needs to have your comforts of home. You need to have your little woolies on when you're cold, or you need to have that warm, sparkly fire and to sit in front of, or, that sort of, or being in nature is also something that can nurture your soul. If you go for a walk or just sit by the river or whatever, right? So again, the sun, moon, and rising sign, I always point to those when I do my monthly videos, because it gives you more of a picture. Because if you're just looking at your sun, you're only going to get more or less your personality, your ego, it's like, oh, okay, this could happen. But if you look at all three, for instance, I'm a Cancer with a Cap rising and a Libra moon. Now I have a pretty well-rounded idea of like, okay, when the planets are ingressing in different signs, it could trigger X, Y, and Z based on, say, my moon, or based on, for instance, this eclipse is in Taurus. It's going to make a beautiful trine, and that's an aspect of 120 degrees, make a beautiful trine to my rising sign, my ascendant. And so it'll be interesting to see what shows up, where it's earthy. Maybe I will receive an opportunity to, well, I'll make it personal. I'm dating a gentleman who's absolutely wonderful, and it's only been for 4.5 months. And maybe he'll tell me there's more to us than what we are. Who knows?
Mm, okay. And then when he does,
Because
I need to meet this guy.
he's a first grade school teacher. He's amazing.
Oh,
Um,
wow. Okay.
but the reason I point to that is not just to talk about me for a second, but
Oh,
but also um, because Taurus is my fifth house ruler, and so it fifth house has to do with fun and pleasure, how you express yourself, has to do with casual dating, relationship, sex, that sort of thing, and children. So it's possible that, like I mentioned, my son earlier telling me that's a child related event. So
mm,
this eclipse in my fifth house had something to do with one of my kids. Now, maybe my daughter will also share some news or whatever. So,
mm. Well, thank you for sharing that.
yeah,
And okay, so for the listeners, your sun sign is what the main sign that everybody looks at when they're zodiac, when they're reading their horoscope. So your sun
right.
sign is, like, for me, it's Taurus. And then it's interesting. So how do you really, I don't really like the word balance, but for just conversation, really balance those three, because you are 100% right with me. Like, I'm cool. I could be like out there shaking and moving and da-da-da. Then I'm like, yeah, I'm trying to be by myself. Like, I just want to shut off from the whole world, and I cannot wait to just go home and just be there. Don't even look at my phone. Sometimes I'm like, I just want to put the blanket over my head. But then I battle with the fact of, like, I feel like, okay, a good example, social media.
Mhm.
There's part of me that cannot stand social media. I'm like, oh my gosh. And then the other part is like, but I need to be out there. I need to be seen. This is a part of my purpose. This is that. But then I'm like, I want to reflect back, like, come back. So if for
Yeah.
people, listeners who, they are familiar with their sun, moon, and rising, and if they feel like, in that sense, do you think it's really just more so just honoring whatever you're feeling at that moment?
Yes, and I'll offer my word. I'm with you. Balance to me is like a teeter-totter, a seesaw
Yeah.
where something can slide off. I like the word harmony, and I think of the yin yang, and that to me is about blending, right? And when things are in harmony, that means that they're working well together. It's like nature requires balance and harmony. So, um, how to harmonize them first and foremost is to accept them,
Mm,
to own every part of ourselves is so empowering. And for example, the Leo rising, well, so Taurus, Leo rising, Aries moon can be dramatic, can go, oh god, the sky is falling, everything's wrong, da 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 da
that,
da. Leo rising adds the flair and the flamboyance to it. It makes it larger than life, right? And then Taurus goes, oh well, it must be real. We got to, because my physical world is reflecting everything that I'm sensing and feeling inside, so it must be true, right? So there's
facts.
some of that. Now the other side of that, and there's times where you may do that. The other side of that is Aries moon says, I am at best when people are in crisis. I can go in and rescue them. I can be that Taurus that's strong and stable and reliable. I can be the one who's responsible when all hell is going to a handbasket. I can be that force that is positive and encouraging. That's the Leo rising. Of, hey,
Mm.
you're in crisis. Let me give you another perspective. Let me help.
I didn't
That's how
know that
you
was
harm.
the Leo. I didn't know that was the Leo rising in me. because I'm like so good at that, and this is from so many people saying this, and I'll feel it afterwards. I'll be like, dang, that was good. I didn't know that that was the Leo rising.
It's the moon and the rising sign.
Yeah.
Your moon in Aries. Aries loves to be the paramedic on scene. You know, if
Mm.
there's a car crash, you better guarantee that there'll be an Aries somewhere around, to rescue and to help. And then you'll have your Pisces there as your nurse or your doctor. And then generalizing because I know there's other signs out there that do it, but and then your Leo, it loves to be on stage. It wants to, it's also Leo is very loyal, very stable. It's a fixed sign. And just like your Taurus is a fixed sign, it can get stubborn and it can get very fixed on a certain idea and a certain way that things have to be done.
Yeah.
But what that can do is it builds trust. And people trust what you say. They trust what you do because you are so clear about it.
Yeah, very, very much. Because, I know that when and being a Taurus, when I got my mind locked on something, it's a wrap. Like, don't even try to even give me another perspective or show me something like, and I am an open person, but when I am set on something, it's like, don't do it. And I will even, and I've said that to people, I'm like, I hear what you're saying, but it doesn't matter what you say. I'm not straying away from this, and I know that, and that's not all the time, but I can feel that when I have anchored down, it's a wrap. Like it
So
is a
I would, if it's okay with you, I'd like to give the audience a little taste of the different signs. So, because I'm sure they're listening going, well, I'm a Cancer, or I'm a Libra, or I'm a Scorpio, whatever. So consider us going to a party. And at the party, there is a person of every sign there. So there's an Aries and Taurus and a Gemini. I'm going to go through these signs. So the Aries, you'll recognize the Aries in the room because they're the one telling the jokes, and they're probably sharing some of the spotlight, but they don't like to share very much. They're very independent. They're like, hey, I got this great idea. Who wants to go with me? They're the general of the party. Hey, y'all, watch this. That's your Aries, very impulsive, doesn't think twice about things, just kind of goes where angels dare to tread. And then you have your Taurus in the kitchen, probably with Cancer at the moment. So, it's probably sitting there going, hey, we need this food. And the Cancer is going, oh, I'll go grow it in my garden for you. And Taurus will go, great, I have this great lasagna recipe. We should work on this together. And Cancer says, are you sure you're okay? I mean, I want to make sure you have what you need. And mothers the Taurus in the kitchen, but they work beautifully together. Hey, do you know where the vegetable peeler is? Oh, it's right over there. Everything has its place, right? And Taurus has decorated the entire party scene just beautifully, rich colors. And then suddenly Scorpio walks in and says, you know what? Something is really mysterious here. There's something deeper and more meaningful to what you just decorated and what this party is all about. Hey, who wants to go on a little mystery tour and let's maybe a scavenger hunt, right? So then you have your Gemini who's busy flitting and floating and socializing and talking to everybody they possibly can, probably being a little annoying at times because they're probably on their phone while they're also trying to have a conversation with somebody. But yet they're fun and youthful and everybody just loves being around them because they're connecting people. They love to network, so they're probably networking and that sort of thing. And then you have, I mentioned the Cancer who's probably not just in the kitchen, but all over working the party to make sure everybody has what they need. Do you need a blanket? Would you like some more to drink? What else would you like? They're going to be your consummate host or hostess. And then you have your Leo, as I mentioned before, who is also probably the life of the party going, I'd like to sing a song. Who wants, hey, karaoke, everybody. That will be your Leo. And then you move into your Virgo, who is being of great service and noticing every details. Hey, and maybe even critiquing a little bit, we really should move the plant over here and maybe some flower arrangement over that way. Very creative, but also humble, very humble in the way in which they operate and wanting to be of great service. But they probably have a list. Hey, are you on the guest list? I didn't see your name here. That would be your Virgo. And then you have your Libras who are definitely playing the peacemaker or the mediator, probably hearing every side of every story going, well, here's another perspective. And have you thought about this? And yes, I see that side, but here's another argument that we could also look at, right? So your Libra's busy mediating and giving opinions and that sort of thing. And then you move, I mentioned the Scorpio being very mysterious, very sexual, very sensual, probably hitting on the Taurus. And then because they're opposite signs. And then you have your Sag who is going, hey, this is a great party and we could totally bring it on a larger scale. Let's see if we can get all the neighbors involved because, Sags just want to have some adventure and some fun. And they may even start a competition. They're the ones that organize the parties at the games. Hey, beer pong for everybody, whatever. Then you have the Capricorn who says, well, we really need to take a serious approach to how we do things and how can we monetize this. This is a really good idea. I think there's a business that could be made out of this model. And yes, I really do. And I do think that we could come up with some really good ideas. And then Aquarius goes, let's innovate it. You know what? Let's look at the systems and figure out how to do it differently. And you know what? You people are not weird enough for me. I need weird. This is just not working. So your Aquarians are also the ones who probably have the different colored hair and all the tattoos and the piercings and that they just want to be different, for the sake of being different, right? Not all of them, but those are generalized. And then your Pisces, they're sitting there probably giving psychic readings, probably talking about spirituality, offering great healing to others, very sweet and euphoric in the way that they go about things. And you'll probably find your Pisces feeling very watery, very fluid, and they just kind of move about the party in this very natural, fluid way. So there's your signs through a party.
That was so good. I appreciate that. And I know the listeners are appreciating that too, and especially putting it in. That's so crazy. Because everyone that you were saying, somebody in that sign popped in my head. I'm like, oh my gosh, that is them. That is totally.
And again, that's just a personality thing, but it gives it, and that's why the sun, moon, and rising sign, it's good to have all three of those so that you can get that bigger picture and you can go, okay, cycle pattern, this week, this month, this day, this is how I'm feeling, this is my experience. So it must be my moon that's being affected here, or my sun, or my rising sign. So
oh my gosh, that was so good. I can't believe how much time just went by. It feels like we're going minutes and we're wrapping up. So I definitely want to wrap up so you can, move forward with like your day. So I do want to bring you back on here where we can
absolutely
talk about the North Node and the South Node and really talk about purpose, because I know that's like a huge thing with a lot of people. And I know once I was made aware of that there was a South Node and a North Node, I was like, oh my gosh, this was like a game changer. So I want to bring you back to talk about that. But this is good because this is a great foundation for a lot of the listeners so they can, just understand it a little bit more before we really hit them over the head with, more astrology. But again, before you go, a couple of things. How can we support you and where can people find you?
Well, you can support me by just continuing to listen to these great podcasts like yours, as well as come find me at jamiedawn.com. That's JAMIEDAWN.com. And I'm on social media. I'd love to follow and have you follow me on Instagram. I'm not on Facebook as much as I used to be. I'm very disenchanted by Facebook, to be honest with you. And the social media aspect, I use social media really just to hopefully give positive outlets and inspirations in my videos. My YouTube channel, sign up for my YouTube channel, and you get weekly videos giving you little pins on the map energetically, and then also monthly horoscopes that I do by sign.
All right, perfect. Yeah, so if you're listening now, definitely go to her website because I think everybody should get their chart. I think everybody should just get there, we'll definitely get
and it's free. Yeah, the chart is free. You can even go to astro.com. I mean, there's plenty of places online that you can plug in you need your date of birth, your time, that's important, and your city and state where you were born. If you don't know your time, you'll use noon, and then an astrologer that knows how to rectify that is a very long process could eventually figure it out, but intuitively I can figure out your rising sign. That's what I need the time for, because the rising sign changes about every 2 hours.
Oh, I did not know that. Okay. Well, I got mine. Mine's accurate.
Yes.
That's something my mom did remember, and it was because she almost died when she was having me. So that's that timing of that she remembers, with that. So You know, that
Mm-hmm.
that was not a good thing that she almost died, but for the reason why I saw this, I wouldn't have known, like, you know, what time and all. So she was like adamant. She's like, I know exactly what time.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, so I again, like, so listeners, I definitely think they should go and get their chart just to kind of understand a little bit more. And I think the way the energy just is, I like to say Earth is ghetto, unfortunately. I say that. I'm like, it's kind of tough here. So any type of blueprint or guide or help that we can get that can bring it back to like us is just, I feel like it's important, so we don't feel like we're just out here just underwater or just struggling, and you can just, you know, understand a little bit more and then get to see actually how beautiful Earth really is versus feeling like this is ghetto.
Well, remember that whatever's happening inside of ourselves is how we're going to perceive the world. So if we're feeling ghetto, the world's going to feel ghetto.
Absolutely. That's me at times. I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, Earth is ghetto. And it's really expensive to like.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. Absolutely. It is such a joy and pleasure. And I'm looking forward to doing it again. I'm going to go to your calendar and look when we can get together again.
Please do.
All right. Thank you, Tisha.
Thanks for tuning in to Seeing with Your Soul. If something you heard resonated with you, feel free to rate, review, and share with others. If you are looking to go deeper, you can connect with Tisha Michelle on Instagram at Mindset Slayer or visit www.healingalignglow.com.